When a dog owner comes back home from his trip, he's shocked to see blood on his walls. He looks at his German Shepherd and figures out the scary truth. Tommy walked through his front door. The vacation had made him feel so much better, but it was really good to be home now. He couldn't wait to see his German Shepherd, Rex, but as soon as the door shut behind him, something felt wrong. His house was totally quiet. Rex hadn't even come to say hello. He took off his shoes and started calling out to his dog as he looked in every room. But when he got to the living room, he stopped and felt scared. All over the door and walls were blood drops. He called Rex's name louder, and this time the German Shepherd came running downstairs. But he wasn't acting normal. He was shaking and looked really scared. Carefully, Tommy pushed open the living room door with his foot and couldn't believe what he saw. He looked at his German Shepherd and back into the room in front of him and figured out the scary truth of what had happened. His friend hadn't been able to come over to take care of Rex one night, and this had happened. Tommy had a simple but busy life living in the small town of Maple Grove, Texas. When he wasn't teaching history at a local school, he was enjoying the peace and quiet of his cozy house. It was a perfect place to get away from everything, especially for someone like Tommy who loved being alone after a busy day with his students. His best buddy was Rex, a loyal German Shepherd who had been with him for years. The beautiful green trees around their home was the perfect place for the big dog to run around and explore. To the teacher, Rex was way more than just a pet. He was family. The man didn't have a wife and kids. It was just how life had turned out for him. But he was totally happy with that. He had all of his students to keep him feeling young and loved, and lots of friends that felt like family too. But Rex was his most loyal buddy. Tommy had saved him from a shelter when he was just a puppy. The poor dog had been left behind with his brothers and sisters on the side of the road. Under Tommy's care though, Rex became a loving, trusting dog who would do anything to keep his owner safe. Their friendship had grown stronger over the years, and Rex was always there to greet the teacher with pure excitement whenever Tommy came home from work. In return, the dog brought joy and friendship to Tommy's life. After a really hard teaching year, Tommy decided to use part of his summer break to take a much-needed vacation. He spent his evenings planning a trip to the mountains, the perfect place for both adventure and relaxation. But he kept running into a problem. Every place that he liked wouldn't allow dogs, and he wasn't sure how he felt about leaving Rex behind. Over coffee with his friend Sarah, he mentioned his plans, and was really surprised to find that she offered to take care of the dog. She told Tommy he deserved a break and that she had no problem checking in on Rex and taking him for a walk. She had known Rex since the day Tommy had brought him home and always made a big fuss of him. When she saw him, Sarah only lived a few blocks away from Tommy, and he trusted her completely. So it was decided Tommy would take his vacation and Sarah would care for the German Shepherd Dot as Tommy packed. He couldn't help feeling a little guilty as Rex watched him fill a bag with clothes and books. He gently patted Rex's head and promised that he'd find them a little weekend trip somewhere together when he was back. Taking Rex with him now would have been the perfect thing to do, but he really needed a break. He felt so tired and stressed, and he couldn't pass up a week in a beautiful cabin surrounded by the mountains, where he could be out in nature and read his books. It would be the best way to feel better again. The plan for Rex was all set, which made him feel a bit better. Sarah would visit the house, feed Rex, and take him for his daily walks. Rex loved Sarah, so the teacher felt good that his furry friend would be taken care of well. In the mountains, Tommy instantly felt peaceful. All his worries began slowly going away, but he did miss Rex. He was thankful to have a friend like Sarah, though she'd been texting every day to let him know that his dog was fine. But on his last day, Sarah called Tommy sounding upset. She couldn't make her usual visit in the evening because of an unexpected emergency. She promised that she'd been to walk Rex that morning and left him plenty of food out, but she wouldn't be able to make it in the evening. Tommy told her that the dog would be just fine that evening and that he was coming back the next morning anyway. He told Sarah not to worry about Rex and deal with whatever she had going on. After that, Tommy didn't think much of it. After all, he'd be home soon, and he wanted to enjoy his final day. As Tommy drove back to Maple Grove, he felt relaxed and calm after his break. He was excited to see Rex though, and already had a big walk planned after the German Shepherd had missed out. The evening before, he figured he would check in on Sarah during the walk too and make sure she was okay. He let his mind think back to his days in the mountains as he drove along the familiar roads. It really had done him good to rest and reset. But as he pulled into the driveway of his house, he had no idea what was waiting for him. He imagined the German Shepherd waiting by the door to greet him, his tail wagging in excitement over seeing each other again. That couldn't be more wrong. When he opened his front door though, he instantly knew something was wrong as the dog didn't come to greet him. And when he reached his living room, he cried out in horror. All over the walls and door were blood drops. Now, Tommy's mind began to race. Had his poor dog hurt himself while he'd been left alone? Is that why he wasn't answering his calls? Tommy tried one last time to call Max. He called out his name loudly and listened. A noise from upstairs told him there was movement, and soon he heard the familiar sound of paws coming down the stairs. His relief at seeing Rex was short though, as he quickly checked him over for injuries. The dog seemed to be fine, which meant there had to be another reason for all the blood. But what could it be? It was a scary sight to come home to, and Tommy wasn't sure that he wanted to see what was behind the living room door. But he had to try and figure out what had happened. Something still didn't feel right in his house, almost like his home wasn't his anymore. Rex wasn't acting normal either. He was practically stuck to the teacher and shaking all over. There was no sign of excitement over Tommy being home, but the dog seemed relieved to have his owner back. Tommy didn't want to touch the door in the state it was in, so he carefully pushed it with his foot and let it swing open. What he saw made him gasp and stumble back in shock. His entire living room had been wrecked. Cabinets and drawers had been emptied. His sofa cushions were scattered all over the floor. Books had been carelessly thrown from their shelves, and now the pages were crumpled on the floor. Tommy was shaking now, and he moved into the next room, careful not to brush up against the blood-stained walls. Rex stuck closely by his side. It was the same thing in his home office though. The whole room had been trashed. Tommy stared at the room and the blood drops, then looked down at Rex, who was whining now. He slowly started to realize the scary truth. His home, his safe place, away from the world, had been broken into. Since Rex didn't have any injuries, the blood could only have come from one place, the intruders. The German Shepherd must have bravely defended his home, while the intruders had tried to do who knows what. Tommy began to look around. He didn't notice anything valuable missing, much to his relief. The whole experience felt unreal. To think that someone had been inside his home. Rex must have felt so scared and confused after what happened. The teacher was shaken now seeing what had happened, so he could only imagine what Rex had gone through with the intruders in the house. He was just glad that they hadn't hurt his loyal buddy. Rex had always been protective of their home and Tommy, and it seemed that his instincts had kicked in during the teacher's absence. Since nothing valuable had been stolen, it was likely that the intruders had been scared off by Rex. Now that the man looked at all the blood on his walls, he began to wonder just how bad the injuries that Rex had caused were. Tommy felt a deep sense of pride and thankfulness for his brave buddy, but he began to wonder if that's how the police would see it. It hit him that his home was now a crime scene, and there were likely one or two intruders out there with injuries. Tommy couldn't not call the police, but he just hoped they understood that Rex was only defending his home. He reluctantly called the police and then slumped down on the floor, letting the phone slide out of his hand. The call person had told him someone would be over quickly to take a statement and investigate the break-in. The shock of it all was catching up with him. As Rex gently nudged him, he placed an arm around the dog and let all of his emotions come out. He had gone on vacation to escape from all the stress he'd been feeling, but he'd come back to something far worse still. Now there was a chance his dog would be in trouble for hurting someone when it was the intruders who were in the wrong. The house had always been a safe place, the place where he and Rex were happy, but it didn't feel like his anymore. To think that someone had been through all of his things and trashed everything was one of the worst feelings he'd ever had. There was a soft knock on the door, and a familiar voice said she was there as she let herself in. Sarah had come over to tell Tommy that her family emergency was all sorted and to ask about his vacation, but she got the shock of her life when she found her friend slumped on the floor shaking and crying while the dog was lying beside him. She rushed straight over and wrapped Tommy in a hug while the man cried. It was only then that she noticed all the blood on his walls and the color drained from her face. She leaned back and asked her friend if he or Rex were hurt. When he shook his head to say no, Sarah gently asked what had happened. She listened in shock as Tommy told her his home had been broken into. Rex must have tried to defend himself. She couldn't believe it though. One night she hadn't been able to come over, and this had happened. Was this all her fault? Tommy was quick to tell her that the break-in had nothing to do with her. The intruders would have likely still done it even if she'd taken Rex on his evening walk. Worse, it could have happened while she was in the house, and who knows what would have happened. Their heart-to-heart was soon interrupted though by a loud knock on the door. It had to be the police. Sarah gave her friend's hand a comforting squeeze. She knew he was worried about Rex, and she was too, although she hadn't let on to that fact. Surely the police would be able to see that the German Shepherd was only protecting his property, and they wouldn't be on the side of the intruders. Thankfully, Tommy had nothing to worry about as the officers praised Rex for his actions and told Tommy that they would alert local hospitals to watch for any person seeking treatment for dog bites. Hopefully they'd be able to capture the intruders and take them in for questioning. The police began to gather evidence and look for fingerprints. Then they took a statement from Tommy, not that he was able to give them much information. They also asked Sarah if she'd seen anything suspicious during her visits with the dog, but she hadn't noticed anything either. All they could do now was wait and see if anyone showed up at a hospital with the police gone. Tommy looked around at the terrible state of his home, but he couldn't even bring himself to tidy up. He didn't want to be in his house right now, and being the good friend that she was, Sarah could sense his discomfort. She told Tommy that she wasn't taking no for an answer, that he and Rex had to move in with her for a while. So as the teacher gathered some clean clothes, Sarah began to load Rex's food, his bed, and a few toys into her car. It was the least she could do for them. It was clear Tommy was very shaken by the whole thing, and Rex seemed affected too. Sarah was more than happy to have them living with her until they felt like they could return to the house over the next few days. Tommy tried to get himself back into some sort of routine. With Rex being at Sarah's was definitely helping, and it was nice to have someone else around. Little did he know that Sarah had also been making sure the house was ready for his return. Whenever that may be, she'd spent countless hours cleaning the whole place, tidying up, repairing or replacing broken items, and finally scrubbing and repainting the walls. When she'd finished, the house was back to its usual cozy look with no trace of any break-in. She had also been researching security systems and had passed some information over to Tommy, encouraging him to take action to make the house safer. As weeks passed, life began to slowly return to normal. The police were still on the lookout for the intruders, but there had been no new developments. Given the amount of blood he'd seen on his walls, Tommy was shocked that no one had gone to the hospital with bite injuries. He could only assume that the intruders had figured they'd probably get caught. Tommy decided to follow Sarah's advice and install a security system in his home to prevent future break-ins. He also made sure to take Rex on longer walks, allowing him to release any built-up energy and continue their training sessions, to keep him engaged and letting him know that he wasn't at fault. The first time he stepped foot inside his house again, he was shocked to see what Sarah had done. He'd had no idea that she'd been around and tidied the whole place up, but he was surprised to find that she'd also added in some cozy extras for his return. New cushions lined the sofa, and the fireplace had a fresh pile of logs waiting next to it. He smiled. Sarah had been a real angel throughout all of this. He had no idea how he would thank her. He'd found that the pair had gotten even closer since the break-in, and although he was getting to return to his house, he now felt like he would miss Sarah when he left. On the first evening back in his house, Tommy sat by the fireplace with Rex at his feet, and he thought about the events of the past few months. He felt grateful for the support of Sarah and the bravery of Rex. The break-in had been a frightening experience, but it had also brought about positive changes in his life and got him thinking about a few things. Sarah had always been a close friend, but their relationship had changed now, and he'd been thinking about doing something for quite a while now. He picked up his phone and texted Sarah asking if she'd like to go out to dinner on Friday. He felt like it was a risky move that could potentially ruin their friendship, but he was developing feelings for her, and the break-in had taught him that life was too short to have regrets. His phone buzzed immediately, and when he looked at the response, he felt his heart soar. Sarah replied that she would love to go for dinner. Maybe this was the start of more than just a friendship then. Rex began to wag his tail as if he could sense his friend's happiness. The break-in was one of the worst things Tommy and Rex had ever been through, but everything had worked out in the end. Tommy had made his peace with the fact that the police were unlikely to find the intruders now and had decided to just get on with his life, a decision which, judging by Sarah's response, was working out well so far that now it's over to you. What do you think of this story? Do you know any stories of animals defending their homes? We'd love to hear your thoughts, so please leave a comment below. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video.